Well, I've been thinking about this interview last couple of days. They told me I get Phillip Rivers, who was so animated as a player. First round pick by the Giants, traded for Eli Manning on draft day, and they both end up having absolutely remarkable careers. He is now the football coach and has been for several years in Alabama at St. Michael Catholic. His son now is the quarterback, and a good one. Phillip Rivers is now joining us live today. You know, I got to tell the audience, I've never seen your son play, but his name is Gunner Rivers. And I'm telling you right now, that's a franchise quarterback name. I would draft him sight unseen on that, just on the name. Now, you were a trash talker, and you had a different delivery. Does he have your kind of sidearm delivery? Is he a little trash talker? Does he have some of the Phillip Rivers classic traits?
Hey, Colin, how's it going? Yeah, no, he definitely has some of the same traits. He's a little more traditional throwing the football than I was, but a lot of people see him throw and go, dang, you throw just like your dad. So he has a little bit of that. I guess it's just genetic. And then he's a little more reserved than I am. He has the fire and passion for the game, but I think he's got his mom's calmness, which will probably serve him well.
I think everybody, very few people had your intensity on the field. You know what's amazing? You were a trash talker, but players, even opponents, loved you. Did you think your intensity, you're obviously talented, did you think your passion and intensity was your best trait?
It was probably one of them. I think I had to a little bit toe the line. I probably crossed the line a few times. I think there's a line that you don't want to cross to where you maybe are not helping yourself or your team. So I'm sure that I didn't always keep that in check. But I do think that the passion and the fire and the intensity was genuine. I know it was genuine. And I do think it was felt by our teammates and in some regard helped, fuel kind of our personality and our, resiliency and how we went about the game. And then you mentioned our opponents. I mean, I hope, you obviously gain respect of your opponent over doing it for a long period of time. So maybe not early on, but I think as time grew, you gained that respect and they realized, man, this dude loves to play football. And that's really all it was, as a guy playing football in the backyard. And I just never let that leave me, although we were playing, in front of, a million people there on a Sunday afternoon.
You told me one time, and I've used this whenever I give a speech, I always say the great Phillip Rivers told me he liked the process of building the game plan as much as the game. And can you instill that in your son or a young quarterback? Or do you think that was just your dad was a football coach? Do you think that's God-given and innate that you loved practice? If a guy, some of these quarterbacks, I think, like the game, I'm not sure they love practice. Can you teach that, or did you feel that was just in you from day one?
Well, I do think that there was some of that was just in me, but I think you better grow to love it, to love the process, especially playing this position, if you want to be great and maybe I didn't get to great, but I know I was pretty dang good for a long time. And I don't think you can get there if you just think you're going to, show up and go out there and play for 3.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon. And so the process of every day and the chance to be on the grass with your buddies practicing football, and sitting in a meeting room and figuring out, Spags' blitz patterns and Rex Ryan's blitz patterns and all these, and like figuring out how we're going to get this thing picked up to throw a touchdown to Antonio Gates. I mean, that's a blast. Or even a third down conversion versus Zimmer's, a double mug scheme. I mean, those things were so fun to work on all week. And then when it came to in the game, there were some of the most gratifying plays on a Sunday afternoon were the ones the fans didn't even realize, but it was the behind the scenes preparations, and it's the Saturday morning walkthroughs, the bus rides, all those things that lead up to the game. I certainly love to play. I loved the games and running out of the tunnel and all those things that I used to ask my mom and dad, hey, introduce me. I'm coming out and we're playing whoever. And they would introduce me and I'd come running out down the hall, getting introduced. So I loved that part. I'll be clear on that. But it was the process that made that part so special. And so, but I just don't know how you play quarterback and aren't all in on the process if you're trying to be, one of the best.
You know, it's I have said this. One of the things I do think you can become more accurate with coaching. I think your footwork can improve with coaching. But there is one thing that I just think is innate. Certain quarterbacks, Mahomes, you could see this instantly. Patrick can see the field. He just sees the field. You did, Breeze did, Brady obviously did. And then I'll watch some young guys and I'm like, I don't know if they can see it. Like and I know there's a film study. Did you always have that? Because you were a good high school, college coach, the ability to, and I've heard this said about you, and I've heard this said about Peyton and Brady, that when a play was over, you could look at the right side of the field, and yet you knew what was going on and could see the left side of the field without staring at it. The great quarterbacks have this innate ability. There's a rhythm to the secondary. And I guess my question is, can you teach that? You had an innate feel for the position. Are there some things, Philip, that aren't teachable?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes. I mean, I think there's certain things and talents that so many guys have in so many different positions that are God-given ability. And you can, like you said, I agree 100%. You know, we got to clean up some footwork. We got to clean up some fundamentals. We can clean up how you're reading this. Or maybe your eyes are just in the wrong place. But there are some things, you know, being able to be accurate. You can work on accuracy. Some people they can throw all day long and they just aren't very accurate. And, you know, accuracy, anticipation, and to be able to see it all and process it fast, definitely you can improve it, but you're probably in a window. You know, someone that can't do that, you can't get them to an elite level. Someone that's pretty dang good at it, maybe you can get them to really good at it. But you can't. I don't think you can. There's certain parts of playing the position that you can't make vast improvements. And some guys, like you mentioned, Mahomes, and you know, we could go on and on of talking about guys. They're at a certain level already that they're able to process and do those things, coached or not coached. And then now you throw in Andy Reid and some of the other coaches he's had, and now in the experience that he's gained, and then you can take him to an even higher level. But he was already, you know, pretty dang elite at it. So I do agree. I do agree with you on those things. And, you know, it's funny because, and everybody has their process. You know, me and Drew were teammates. We got to connect this weekend. It was great to see Drew. And we had such a different process in terms of our daily routine, but yet they both worked. And there's some similarities, but I say that not to mention this about Drew, but just, we all have our different routines. But I wasn't big looking at the iPad coming off the field. Now I would go look at it to see the pictures to confirm maybe, or dang, maybe they fooled me. I need to go see it. But a lot of times, you know, it was kind of a running joke. I'd say, I saw it live, guys. I just saw it live. I don't need to come back over here and look at it again. Crap, I know I should have gone the other way, you know? So, and again, and that wasn't in an arrogant way. It was just, I saw it live, you know? And so Certainly I use those tools as needed over there. But there is definitely some of that. And I say it in humility because shoot, I threw it to the other team, you know, shoot 200 times or however many times. So I certainly make all right decisions. But I feel like I did have that ability to see it and process it quickly and throw with anticipation and be accurate.
So I wrote about this in my first book. I've had this theory forever, that most of the great quarterbacks, at one point, North Carolina State had 3 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and Cal had 2 or 3, and USC and Ohio State had none. There's an argument to be made that when you play at a North Carolina State or a Cal or a Miami of Ohio or a Purdue, that's real life in the NFL. You're getting hit. The windows are small. These USC guys are throwing to wide open wide receivers. You're not doing that at Duke. You're not doing that at NC State. That I think it was an advantage for you to go to NC State instead of an Ohio State, because the NFL truth is discomfort. Nobody's that open. You don't get great protection. You're getting hit constantly. I used to joke. I remember Matt Leinart at USC. One year he got sacked 11 times. He may have just fallen down half of those. He barely got touched. I'll give you an example. J.J. McCarthy always played with a lead. Michigan, a perfect offensive line. I worry about J.J. 3 years with Harbaugh or 2 years with Harbaugh. He barely got touched. Do you think there's an advantage getting beat up a little bit in college like Mahomes or Josh Allen, then going to the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sold based on that that minute of you saying that. I never thought of it that way, and I certainly didn't ever feel like I had inferior teammates those years at NC State. But there's a combination of that, of yeah, maybe, and even more so, maybe now you don't have the, all the comparisons you made make perfect sense. But we felt like at NC State, we were going to stick and win them all. We thought we were going to win them all. So I say that with all due respect to certain teammates I had, because I had many teammates. You mentioned the quarterbacks, behind me, the great receiver, Torrey Holt, many teammates of mine that have had long careers in the NFL. But yes, and I think, too, you play more games. I played in 51 college football games. So I definitely felt like even more equipped than had you go to a place and you only play 2 years, you play 20 games, and you play from a lead and you hand it off and you throw it 18 times. I mean, I threw 100. I threw 100 passes in my first 2 games at NC State with Norm Chow. So, but you're right though. You get to the NFL, and I was in my first week or two of minicamp, and we had some play on. I don't remember, and I didn't throw the ball. I got to the check down, didn't throw the deep cross or deep over, and Cam Cameron said, "Why didn't you throw it?" And I said, "He's not open," and he said, "He's wide open," and I was like, "Dang." Okay, like there's the windows and the separation. It's like, so those things are all true that you say. Now you take a Matt Leinart to JJ McCarthy, a guy that can come from those historic programs, and they can still have unbelievable NFL career, be great. So it's not like you can't that way. But is there something to be said for the Texas Techs and the Wyomings and the NC States of the world? Maybe, heck yeah, and I definitely think there's something to game experience and playing. There's no no substitute for playing. You have to play.
Yeah. So Antonio Gates makes the Hall of Fame. Speaking of college, never played a college football snap. Take me to, it may have been a practice. When was the first moment you're at practice or somewhere with him and you went, who's that guy? Like you knew. How long did it take for you to identify, whoa, people can't guard him? He's too big for linebackers. He's too strong for safeties. How long did it take?
Well, not long. I mean, I was in my rookie year, and I had a front row seat my first 2 years, with Drew and Gates. That would have been his, he was a rookie the year before me. And so I got to see it. I got to see it from the sideline those first 2 years. And he was one of those guys that, we had a Gates rule. We had the progression for the play and based off the coverage, and then we said, okay, and this one is Gates rule, and which meant, hey, if he's singled up, I don't care if the leverage is good for him, he's going to beat them anyway, and it was just that overrode the progression was then done. It was overridden by the Gates rule, but he had a unique ability he was fast and big, but he had a unique ability to understand body position and getting hands off and attacking leverage and doing those things. And I he was always considered this basketball guy. But I think what he did was he was very humble in saying, crap, I want to be a football guy and I got to learn all this. What is all these coverages and they're bracketing me and where's the help and once he learned that, then it was forget about it. And that's why he had that stretch, 7 or 8, 9 year stretch. Obviously he played longer than that and his whole career was awesome, but he had that stretch where he was arguably, just uncoverable.
So finally your son, Gunnar Rivers is, and you can look him up. He's going to be one of those top quarterbacks on all those recruiting things. So you're going to start hearing about him. Do you ever watch him and think, man, he does that a little better than dad did at his age? Is there anything you're just thinking, man, he maybe have a little better fastball than dad, or he may move a little better than dad?
Oh yeah, that happens. That happens more than you'd think. I think too, the game has just changed so much. You and I talked a little bit off air briefly. 25 years ago, it was just different. The game is just different than what it is now. There wasn't 7-on-7s, and we didn't grow up playing flag football. I mean, me and Gunnar, and we were playing flag football. Playing against teams from Hawaii and Idaho and Arizona and all this when we were in California when he was 10 years old. So you're getting to practice that anticipation and accuracy as a 10-year-old. And so he's just thrown the football in a competitive environment a whole lot more because of the day and age of football that we're in. And, you know, it's been fun. It's fun to coach him and his teammates and be at this school and coach these guys up. And, you know, and again, remember the mission is it's more than about the game. I remind these guys, it's going to end for you at some point. Most of our guys, it's going to end when they graduate high school. And hopefully, you know, Gunner, and he does have some teammates that can advance and play college football. But I remind them that even if you get to play for 17 years, it does stop and the clock will end. So it's got to be more than just the X's and O's. You got to learn those life lessons that you get from this great sport. And I'm hopeful that I can pass some of that down to these guys and help them be better men for having been in the program. Well,
you're a class guy. One of my favorite players, 17 years. I was looking at some of your stats. Sixth most, 421 career passing touchdowns, the sixth most in NFL history. 240 consecutive starts in the regular season. That is a lot of starts. Did you ever have a game day when you just felt like crud and started? Like, did you ever have, I mean, you obviously were not in perfect condition. Did you ever not know an hour before a game if you were going to start?
No, I know, but yes, many games where it felt like crud would be an understatement. But thankfully, I mean, again, this isn't me saying, "Wow, look how tough I was." I really was. I was blessed with health and the ability to go out there every Sunday. I'll just leave it at that. But there were certain Sundays that weren't real fun physically, weren't real fun during the week to get there. But again, a lot of great guys up front fighting like crazy to keep me clean. And then you just have some injuries you have and you deal with them. And there was the one record that was one of my favorite growing up. You know, I mentioned the 51 starts in a row at NC State, which at that time was a record. I think it's been broken, and now these guys play 14, 15 games a year. But one of my favorite records was Brett Favre's start streak. And I remember watching that going, man, he's played how many in a row? Man, he's going to get to 300. And I remember just saying, again, this is just as a competitor, I'm going to chase Brett Favre's record. I'm going to get there. And I didn't play those first 2 years as I sat behind Drew. And I realized ultimately I couldn't get there, but by golly, I was going to find a way to be second, you know, and suit up and be out there if I could every week for our team. And I do think there's the best ability, as Chuck Amato told us, the best ability is dependability. And that was one thing I was going to be. I was going to be out there. I was going to be out there every week. And give it my all. And shoot, I know we fell short plenty of times, but they knew they could count on 17, get them everything they had for those 240 in a row.
Well, my favorite interview in a long time. Philip, absolute pleasure. St. Michael Catholic High School in Alabama. He took over a program that didn't really exist. They just won their first playoff game last year. Congratulations to you and your program, and they are lucky to have you as a coach. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Colin. Enjoyed it.